and I think he ended up spending maybe like $15 on food, and his mom called him in the middle of dinner and said, "Why are you spending $15 at Applebee's?"
Hello and welcome to Mean Green Money, the UNT Student Money Management Center podcast that covers everything you need to know to be financially successful in college and beyond. Today, we're reaching into the Mean Green Mailbag to talk about real questions that students have about their money, including parental access to bank accounts, buying books, and retirement savings. Hope you enjoy. Back here once again with Vernisha and Austin. You all want to say hi?
Hey, what's up? We're back.
Hi, we're back.
Alright, so we're back here with another episode of the Mean Green Mailbag, where we answer questions that real students have about money. If you want to hear your question answered on the air, please send it our way, money.management.unt.edu. And let's see what we got in the mailbag today. Alright, first one. I'm sick of living in the dorms and I want to move off campus next year. How do I know if I can afford to do that?
When I was trying to make that decision, one thing I did was I look at how much is it costing me monthly to live in a dorm compared to how much is it costing me to just to live in an apartment. And so if you're if you're like, I don't care how much it costs, I just want to get out of here, then maybe, either way, you just want to budget out how much money it's going to cost you so you can be ready for it. But if that's something that matters to you, I would take it into account when you are moving to apartments. Okay, what is your price? What is the most you're willing to pay for rent and utilities? Some of the student living, they put all those things together, so it's just one bill. And, it might cost you at most, the cheapest might be like $550. The most expensive might be like $700 to $800.
Yeah, it also depends on, do you want to live in student living or not? Because there are student apartments around Denton, and usually with student apartments, it is going to be a little cheaper. The apartments may not be as nice as apartments that are not student living, but you can definitely find some apartments that will still fit that budget you create and still be good for you.
That's interesting, because when I was looking, I thought I had the exact opposite experience that Austin said, because all of the non-student living apartments I found were cheaper than the student living apartments. The thing was, they just didn't include those internet and utilities in the base price, so you had to add them together. And for me, I think I'm still getting a better deal than I would be in an equivalent student living, but it also depends on what kind of apartment you want to live in. Do you care if they have a pool or a workout room? Do you care about
furniture?
How close you are to campus? Yeah, do you care if you have to buy your own furniture or...
Yeah, so if you're someone that still wants that dorm feel, you still want all the stuff provided for you, then student living is a good place because you usually get your own room. And then if you want to, you can get your own bathroom as well. There's so many apartments with that deal. So it'll provide everything. You pay one lump sum and you call it a day basically. Or if you feel okay, I could get a cheaper deal if I go to one of the non-student living apartments, then that's totally fine with you. It's basically deciding on how much am I willing to spend a month and how much can I really afford.
With that, you have to do your research. Word of mouth research is wonderful because ask your friends, ask relatives that have lived in the area. These are people that are going to know the apartments. They're going to have their experiences and they're going to tell you which ones to avoid. They're going to tell you which ones are better. They'll also tell you about what the different amenities they have. Also, just go into the different apartment websites and kind of mix and match and see what is best suited for you.
And you want to also think about how many roommates you want to have.
Oh yeah, or if you want roommates, period. But understand,
if you don't want roommates, you're gonna have to be prepared to probably pay a lot more than somebody who is willing to live with 2 or 3 other people.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, make sure with your roommates, your experiences are kind of up in the air. You could definitely live with strangers and have a wonderful experience with them, and you could possibly live with some of your best friends and may not have as good of an experience, or it could be the total opposite.
Yeah, and make sure sometimes if you're in student living, you might be able to get separate leases for each room, but in non-student living, it's normally going to be one lease for the whole apartment. So if you're going to be living with people, whether you know them well or don't know them well, are they also financially stable enough to be able to afford the rent every month? And if 1 or 2 months one of your roommates stumbles or loses their job, are you prepared to be able to put up a little bit extra money to make sure that you don't get evicted or lose that apartment.
Yeah.
Whereas in student living, if you have separate leases, that might not be something that is as much of a concern to you.
And it does happen because I had a friend who roommates just completely moved out on him, and he went from paying $300 a month to like $1,000 a month. So just weigh your options really, and just think about, what can you afford, not what anyone else, and never get pressured. My freshman year, I kind of got pressured because I wanted to live with my friends into being in an apartment that, it was way too expensive, honestly. And don't get pressured. Just sit down with yourself and say, okay, can I afford this? Not can someone else, if with, my friends help, I can afford this, but can you yourself afford it?
All right, let's see what else we got. I'm really working on building my credit, but during finals week, I was so stressed out that I forgot to pay off my credit card, and now my score is lower. Did I permanently hurt my credit? Is there anything that I could do to fix it?
It's not the end of the world. It's fine. We all forget sometimes. Like, honestly, it's going to be okay. Your credit score will change multiple times throughout your life. It will go up and down. But know that you can still go up with it. Just maintain those payments. Even if you have to do an automatic thing, then you can try to do that so you won't have to necessarily always have to remember to pay it.
Another thing to definitely think about is that with any type of credit reporting system, for credit card example, that's only going to be on your credit report for 7 years. Once you close out that credit card, it'll only be on your report for 7 years. So it's definitely not the end of the world. Like Vernisha mentioned, you can recover from this. Just keep making those payments.
The more payment history you have, the more payments you'll have, and the less each payment is going to be able to affect you. Because, once you've had it for 5 years, one missed payment out of 60 payments, you're still doing pretty well with that card. So it's not the end of the world. Just make sure you have a system in place to make sure that next time you get stressed out, you'll still end up making your payment on time, and your credit score should be back to normal.
Back to normal.
Pretty quickly. I came into the Student Money Management Center and made a budget with y'all a while ago. I was doing pretty well at sticking to it for a couple months, but now I'm kind of losing some of my motivation, and I'm really tempted to just stop tracking, stop caring, and say whatever and spend money the way I want to. How can I maintain my motivation long term to stay budgeting?
Will future you be excited about that decision about letting everything go?
I think a good motivation tactic that most people can employ, not just in a financial sense, but in a life sense, is have an accountability partner. Find a friend you're really good friends with. Make a budget with them and get them to start budgeting, and then you guys can budget together. And then that way, you every week or every month, you're like, hey, how's your budget going? Hey, how you doing with this? That way you have that partner who can kind of keep you motivated. Like, all right, well, you're trying to save up for a car. Well, you need to save this much money by the end of the year. So then they can kind of keep you on track and make sure you're still going.
Or maybe if you have a competitive spirit, try to make it a competition. Like whoever you're like, hey, I bet I could save more money than you by this end of period. And that kind of helps me because I know when I want to really compete with someone, I'm like, don't worry. Also, don't forget to reward yourself. I think we get so caught up in being perfect when we're planning out these budgets and maintaining them that we forget, hey, let me reward myself. Treat yourself. You know what I mean? If you've been doing this for some time, just okay, if I maintain this budget to this time, I know I could plan on buying these new, shoes or these new headphones or whatever you want to buy. So, yeah.
And I think a big part of it is making it automatic, too. If you have your banks set up to automatically transfer a certain amount into savings at the beginning of each month or out of each paycheck, then it takes some of the stress off of you doing the work throughout the month because you know that you already won by saving at the beginning. I'm sure some of the same can apply when you're cooking. You get an idea of kind of what meals you want to make and how much groceries should cost you. So it can become increasingly automatic, and if you put in that work at the beginning, it'll take a little bit less effort as time goes on to be able to reach those same goals.
Also, think about when you weren't budgeting, how did you feel? You probably felt like, man, all my money is going. I don't even know where my money is going. You probably felt lost financially. Think about, a lot of times what prevents me is when I think about, when I didn't make the right decision, how did I feel? And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't want to feel that way again. So I just go on and I, continue to truck on. Yeah.
All right. This one just says Bitcoin, question mark, question mark, question mark.
Bitcoin.
That's very vague.
What is a Bitcoin?
What is
Let's
a Bitcoin?
start with, what is a Bitcoin? What is it?
Bitcoin is a fiat electronic currency that was invented not too long ago.
So, English version, electric money. Like money, like electronically. So cool. Yeah. If you guys want to, like, make that a little bit more simpler.
So, you all investing in Bitcoin or what?
No, I'm not. I'm a very conservative investor, so I feel like Bitcoin is way too volatile. Like, one day you can be worth, like, last time I checked, it was worth $1,300, like, to buy Bitcoin, and then one day it was, like, $50. Like, it's way too volatile for me.
I don't know. I haven't really made up my mind on that yet. It's a lot of work to deal with Bitcoin. I have friends that are doing it, and they'll spend a couple hours plugging away at the computer trying to mine Bitcoin, or they'll dump cash into it to try and get Bitcoin as well. And I'm not saying what they're doing is wrong or anything. It's just I don't think it's right for me personally.
Also, what do you guys think, like, Bitcoin will be the future of, like, money? Because we are moving more to, like, electronic transfer, like EFTs, I think that's what it's called. So we're moving towards those a lot more, and I'm kind of seeing maybe Bitcoin might be the next move within the next 20-ish years.
Well, there are companies and also countries that are starting to accept Bitcoin as kind of a normal currency. There are also, on this other side of the spectrum, there are countries and companies that are not okay with Bitcoin. I believe there's some Asian countries that are banning Bitcoin entirely from being used just because they don't think that it's an actual currency and they don't think it holds any water.
But also, what are some other reasons why a country may not necessarily want Bitcoin?
Well, it probably has to do, I don't know, like, for sure, but maybe with, taxes and legality of transactions. Is there more privacy going on when it's happening through Bitcoin and not happening through U.S. banks and U.S. dollars? It's a lot harder for the government to track what's happening.
Right. No, absolutely, you're correct. It's not regulated by any sort of government, and that's usually what throws off countries.
Yeah, but that's, like, the appeal for a lot of people who are using it.
Yeah, usually it's used on the black market, I've heard.
Yeah, but it's the enemy of
governments
and regulatory agencies liking it and wanting it to be a normal currency.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, as far as owning it as an investment,
no,
I might do it for fun, but I don't think I'd put my retirement savings in it.
Yeah,
I would definitely, if it was anything that I was going to do, it would definitely be maybe a once a month thing, where I'd just maybe sit at the computer and kind of plug away at it. But I don't think I would actually
some extra money, but
I don't think I would invest. I don't think I'd invest money into it though.
I wouldn't invest like a serious amount of money. If I have like some extra and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna see where that goes, because I do have my boyfriend's brother actually did it, and he ended up cashing his out at like $3,000.
Yeah,
but
my friend's dad just built like a new back porch and pool and everything.
Yeah,
he was in on Bitcoin.
Yeah, when it was not selling too great.
But yeah, and then the other thing is that there are so many other digital currencies, like some that have been around for a while and some new ones that are being created. You don't necessarily know right now if Bitcoin is going to be the one that becomes like a standard currency, or if one of these other ones.
It might just be the pioneer for it.
It definitely, well, I don't even think it was the pioneer for electronic transfers, but I definitely think that it's one of the most prominent ones. You could probably name off other cryptocurrencies like that, and some people will kind of look at you weird, like, what are you saying? What is, you say Bitcoin? Most people understand what Bitcoin is, and they understand like the idea behind it. Then those other cryptocurrencies, you'd have to go in and explain what you're talking about.
I'm thinking about like outside of the cryptocurrency space. If you think about like something like Google, they weren't the first search engine,
right?
But now like they're basically
the search
when
engine?
you say search engine, you're probably talking about Google,
right? You're going to say I'm going to go.
Are we in the pre-Google stage of cryptocurrency?
So, you're definitely correct. You don't say I'm going to go Bing it. You say I'm going to go Google it.
Yeah, and so I think it's mainly for the final advice for me is what's it, risk rate? Like, what kind of risky person are you? Are you someone who really loves to take risk? And if so, maybe looking at doing your research a little bit more into Bitcoin and maybe, finally making those steps to you invest in, then that'll be perfect. But if you're more, conservative, then maybe Bitcoin isn't the best, but you just really make the decisions based on your research and also your own personal, wants and needs.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend too much more time here, but I also think it's interesting how people talk about investing in Bitcoin. Whereas if you're just looking at any other currency outside of people who trade Forex, you're not saying, I'm going to go invest in some dollars.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I also think is interesting, looking at it as, are people using it as an investment, or are they using it as a currency?
Yeah.
And if you want it to be a currency, do we need to start spending it and not just hoarding it because we think it's going to go up in value?
But definitely with any sort of cryptocurrency, do your research.
Do your research.
Do your research.
That's what we got for you.
Follow your
Bitcoin,
best.
question mark. Back to the more conventional. What's the best way to pay off student loans?
You don't. I'm kidding.
And it kind of depends on what kind of situation you're going into. I guess career option, because with that public service loan forgiveness, that's definitely an attractive appeal. I know for me, myself, at least. What about y'all?
I
Do you think we're
feel
still going to have public service loan forgiveness 10 years from when you graduate?
probably not.
I don't know, but most of the time with those kind of things, they do grandfather people in. So that is...
So as long as you get in there before.
As long as you get in there.
But honestly, I don't think that's going to be a thing anymore, because student loan debt is getting out of hand, honestly. It's just getting terribly high. And some of my advice for those who are trying to manage that is, one, in the beginning, when you are borrowing money, think about your future salary, think about the minimum amount that you're going to make, and don't try to borrow over that. Or, try to borrow below that, because if you can't afford it within 1 year to pay that off, then maybe you shouldn't, take out more than that. Also, just make sure you're staying in touch with your loan officer if anything changes, if you lose your job, if you gain more money. Making sure you're talking to the loan officer can help you, that repayment process go by a lot smoother.
Yeah, and also know what your options are. If you're looking purely mathematically, the best way to pay off your student loans, as far as paying least, is to pay them off quickest. The faster you pay them off, the less you'll have to pay in total.
Right.
But you might be in a situation where you just can't afford to make what your payments were under the standard plan, and then you can think about trying to apply to get an income-driven repayment plan, where it could dramatically lower your student loan payments if you don't make that much money, so that way you're still able to pay them off while making sure that you have enough money for rent and food and clothes and all the other things that you need in life without neglecting your student loans. When I opened my bank account, Wells Fargo encouraged me to give my parents access to it so it would be easy for them to give me money. Is this a bad idea? When is or isn't it appropriate to share access to my bank account?
Well, I don't know. I think, one, I don't think that's such a good idea, just in my opinion, because if, anything happens, they're not legally bound to, you're the one, the bank account is over, so if they, just so happen to withdraw money, and, they withdraw more than you actually have, then you're legally bound to actually pay that money. You're the only one responsible when things actually happen to that account. Also, there's so many other ways they can give you money, and it's just going to be a no for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm also a no. Vernisha touched on it kind of briefly at the end, but there are so many ways that you can get money from different people. Venmo, I know Wells Fargo uses Zelle, there's Cash App. Heck, you just go with an old-fashioned wire transfer. It doesn't cost anything, so why not?
Also, it's just the only time I would even think about doing co-authorization would be maybe when I get married. But also, there's an option of just getting a joint bank account and then you still having your other bank accounts. So that's one situation. Other than that, I don't think it's not the safest way for your money, basically.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it with your parents? Would you do it with a spouse?
Nah, I'm just
With a
kidding.
spouse? I don't know. With a spouse, I think I would. Not saying I don't trust my parents or nothing. I definitely do. Love you, Mom. But my mom knows that there are other ways to send me money than just having access to my account. She knows there are other ways. I've told her other ways that are perfectly, like we already mentioned, they're perfectly fine. With a spouse, yeah, I could see myself doing it. Maybe not in the first couple of years, but after that, absolutely.
I also think that you have to think about the other ways. It's also letting someone into your financial state. So say, for instance, you do, maybe you gain, let's say, for instance, you win the lottery and you want to be totally on the DL with the whole thing. You don't want anyone to know. But now your parents know that you have $10 million in your account, and they're like, where'd you get all that money? But it's just like, maybe just for you to, it's a privacy thing as well. So you might not necessarily want them to know how much money you have. Or my mom, she loves to talk, because I love to talk. That's probably where I get it from. But, you know, she might be like, yeah, my kid has like $10 million in their bank account. So
yeah, if your parents have access, you know, they can log in and see everything you've been spending money on.
Yeah, so they're like, why'd you spend money, $300 at pizza? And you're like, hey, mind your business, bruh. So
that's another thing with that. They will look at your account.
They will.
I have a friend, his parents have access to his account, and we have been out, like, having a good time. We went to go eat somewhere, and I think he ended up spending maybe like $15 on food, and his mom called him in the middle of dinner and said, why are you spending $15 at, like, Applebee's? And, like, he had to just explain that he was out with friends, and she's just like, well, you don't normally go to Applebee's, and it was just, like, this weird conversation. I mean, if you want your parents calling you in the middle of Applebee's, like, all right, go for it.
I want to start saving for retirement, but everywhere I go, it just looks like alphabet soup. What is a 401k or an IRA or a Roth IRA, and which one should I get?
You should get whatever your heart desires.
After doing your research, you know, then you
go with your heart.
More financially savvy heart.
Go with your Wait, I pulled some stuff up over.
In all seriousness, there are different types of accounts for retirement savings. Mm-hmm. The most common one that you'll probably see are the 401k and the IRA. Yeah. The 401k normally you get through an employer. You open it when you get a full-time job, and the benefit of that is taxes. Basically, with any retirement account, there are tax benefits. Mm-hmm. They can be set up, if it's just like a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA, usually it is that the money that you put into that account reduces your taxable income this year. So you'll save on some income taxes this year by putting money into that account. If it's a Roth 401k or a Roth IRA, you usually save money on the opposite end. You still have to pay income taxes on the money you put in there now, but when you withdraw the money when you're old and retired, you don't have to pay the same taxes then. And IRAs are normally just done like something you do on your own through any kind of investment company or bank, versus a 401k normally being something that comes from your workplace.
Also remember, not every workplace offers a 401k. So also if you work for like the government or the state, it's a 401b, and those are
403b.
403b, sorry. So those are usually about the same.
And they can come under like a lot of different names and numbers. I think some places will also offer like 457s now, or if you work for the military, it might be like a TSP or something like that.
So honestly, I say Google it. if you're having a question about, okay, what is this, what is that, and everything is kind of look, if you do have a chance to sit down with your HR professional at your job, do that as well. Just say, okay, I need you to explain these things to me, and because I'm not sure. It's okay to ask questions because that is your money, and you definitely have to take control of it in order to be financially successful.
Yeah, and a lot of these, like the tax benefits and things like that, are regulated by, the IRS and the federal government. So if they change their mind, their rules can change. Yes. So don't just say, oh, I listened to this podcast and it said this, that means it's definitely true now. Who knows what kind of rules could change between when we record this podcast and when you actually go open the account. Yeah. So make sure you're doing your research at that time.
So our number one rule is research.
And always research. The other thing to think about with any of these accounts is that they're just an account. Yeah. Just because you have a 401k doesn't mean you're actually investing money. You have to go in and pick investments within any of those types of accounts if you want your money to actually be invested in something and start growing faster than you're just putting money into it.
Yeah, and these aren't the only ways. If you wanted to, you can, with a 401k, you can have a 401k and you can do something outside of that as well. So that doesn't have to be your only type of investing tool.
You can save all the money.
All the monies in the world.
All right, speaking of saving money, how do I save money on textbooks?
Well, I think there's a couple of good options one option that I always do is if I have a friend in the class, I'll get them to agree to split the cost of the textbook, and then we'll just split the book.
Like in half?
No, not in half.
You need to pass the half. I'll pass the final.
Not in half. No, we'll just split the use of the book. It's saved me a couple $100 throughout my time here. Another thing you could definitely look at is there's a lot of options for getting books. You also, the number one thing I would recommend is do not buy your textbooks early, because you may walk into a class with your textbook that you spent $150 on, and the teacher might say, all right, well, I hope you didn't buy a textbook because you definitely don't need it, because we're not going to use that textbook during the course. And then you're just stuck with a book.
Or they need a updated version,
Yep.
or, you might understand that even if you do buy a book, so if you buy it from one of the surrounding bookstores, don't take off the wraps, because once you take that off, usually your book is worth little to nothing.
Also, I would say, if you do have to get the book, like if your teacher is just like, you're definitely going to use this book throughout the semester, look at options to rent it. Also, maybe just talk to them and see if there's a way, see if using maybe not the newest version of the textbook, maybe like the last version.
The price usually tanks after a new edition comes out, so you can ask them. Say the 11th edition, but there might only be a couple of changes from the 10th edition. So if it has 90% of the same stuff, it could only cost you 10% of the amount of the textbook for 90% of the same materials.
Also, ask about price matching when you do go to the bookstores. It's always good to, look up your book on a website I love is Slug Books, and it basically will take a book, you put in an ISBN code, and then it will search the whole internet for all the book prices, and it'll put it in one place, which is something really great. So if you find it, and say for instance it's on Amazon for like $23, but in the actual bookstore it's like $100 and something, see if they're able to meet you in half. They're able to meet you at some place, or see if you can wait a little bit and just get your delivered books from Amazon. That's what I did last semester, and I only spent $73, and that was my senior year.
Yeah, and if you think you're in a situation where you're probably not going to need the book that often, like if you're not planning on doing the readings, which you should do the readings, but
all the time.
If you're not going to do the readings, sometimes the books will be they'll have library course reserves where you can actually check out the textbook from the library for a certain amount of time. So if you think you might only need it for a couple projects or a few chapters throughout the semester, you can think about just borrowing it from the library for those times that you need it.
Also, sometimes I went on Rate My Professor, and that was a good way for me to be able to see how often the book is used, and if the book is if your grade depends heavily on the book. And sometimes people are like, you never use the book, and I never used the book, no matter how harshly the person was trying to sell it to me.
All right. Any final words of wisdom, interesting things you've seen this week that you want to share?
Research. I thought we were going to say it together.
Oh, you want to say that again?
Yeah.
You want to do it again?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Research.
How do you research without being overwhelmed and getting decision fatigue?
Take a break. When you research, you are going to get that decision fatigue, and with that in mind, make sure you set aside time to also take a break. Spend like 15-20 minutes research and take 5 minutes, go do something else, and then come back and research some more.
And get help if you don't understand the words that are being used or the fine print. Sometimes they're worded and written in a very kind of legalese lawyer way and not necessarily a user-friendly way. So please get help. If you need help, you can come to our office for free and talk to somebody, and we can help you sort through some of that stuff. You don't have to figure it all out alone.
Also know what questions you want, what exactly you want. So a lot of times when you Google just like the color blue, then you just get a whole bunch of blue. But if you say aquamarine blue, then just knowing exactly what you want will help your research go by a little bit smoother.
Also, when it comes to different products that are offered in person or online, don't get pressured into buying anything right then and there, because most of the time when you get pressured, unfortunately it's human nature, you're not going to look at the fine print and you might make a mistake. So don't get pressured, and again, just do your research.
Yeah, start before you need it, so there's not an urgent need to buy something.
And lastly, know thyself. Vernisha said it first.
If you would like to hear your questions answered on a Mean Green Mailbag episode, please send them to money.management.unt.edu with the subject line, Mean Green Mailbag. The Student Money Management Center is your on-campus resource for all things personal finance. For more information about us, you can go to moneymanagement.unt.edu or visit our office in Chestnut Hall 313. Any additional questions, comments, or feedback for the show can be sent to money.management.unt.edu. If you like the show, please share it with your friends and fellow students. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.